Today I'm reviewing the Gravity Defiant Paramotor now that I've had many hours built up on this flying machine, and I gotta say, it's really impressive. As far as the unit itself goes, I think it's pretty darn close to perfect. However, there are some other things to consider as a consumer looking to buy either your first or your second Paramotor. I'm not sponsored by Gravity Paramotors in any way, however I do know the owners of Gravity Paramotors, and the one thing that they have asked of me is to share not only the good, but they especially want me to share the things that I don't like. We'll start with the bad news first, and then go to the things that I really do love about the Gravity Defiant. First things first, the ugly side of the Gravity Defiant for some individuals will be the fact that you have to assemble this paramotor from the ground up, and I imagine that a lot of you out there would think it might be fun to assemble your own flying machine, while others would probably want a flying machine right out of the box, ready to take to the field and go and fly. But that's not the case for this Gravity Defiant. You will spend hours building it. If you've never built anything before, it could be really intimidating. The good news about this is that the guys over at Gravity also happen to be amateur filmmakers, and they've started assembling some videos, like tutorials on how to build the Gravity Defiant step by step, and it's really thorough. And if you have an hour and 20 minutes to see what this build process entails, I highly encourage you to sit down and watch this thing in its entirety prior to making the purchase. You will be more knowledgeable about your flying machine than just about anybody else in the paramotor community, because you've handled every component on the machine. Let me know if you think it's a good thing or a bad thing. I've found one more thing that I don't really care for, and that's when using the speed system. It's not quite as fluid. For those of you who aren't aware what the speed system is, it's a system that uses a bar that the pilot steps on that connects to lines that run through the series of pulleys in the harness, and it works its way up to the risers, where it connects to a part of the glider that pulls down on that leading edge, which effectively changes the angle of attack, increasing the speed of the glider. The action of using the speed system is not quite as fluid as it is on my previous Paramotor, which had the Dudek power comfort seat. The good news about this bad news is you have the option when purchasing your Gravity Defiant to purchase the Dudek power comfort seat. Let me be clear in that both of these harnesses are very similar. Both of these harnesses are fantastic harnesses. It's just my personal preference for the Dudek power comfort seat. It's not as comfortable as the SupAir Harness, but it's still comfortable. Functionality wise, the Dudek power comfort seat takes the cake for me. My only gripe about my Paramotor is not purchasing the harness that I wanted. Lastly, on the topic of bad, I feel obligated to include this, though I certainly don't see it as a bad. I just can hear people in the comment section talking about the weight of the Paramotor and that I ought to mention it. I find that weight is less relevant, and I've actually drawn up a board over here to explain. Let's take a peek at that. So the Parajet Maverick weighs in with a dry weight. That means no fuel, nothing else, like standard weight at 56 pounds. Gravity Defiant down here weighs in with a dry weight of 60 pounds. So there's a 4-pound difference. So over here, the empty weight, the Maverick is 93% of the weight of the Gravity Defiant. When it's filled up, let's say you have 5 gallons, you're doing a cross-country flight on either Paramotor, the Maverick is actually 96% of the weight of the Defiant. The odds of you noticing the difference in the weight is probably more like, almost like a placebo. In the military, when it comes to doing these ruck marches with massive amounts of weight, it's a lot more important on how the weight is positioned on your back. It's very comfortable. I would urge people not to exclusively make purchasing decisions on the difference of a few pounds. Back to the show. Now I can focus on the good now that I've gotten those concerns out of the way. And there's a lot of really good things to consider. And the number one thing that I want to just mention about why this Paramotor is not just subjectively good, but objectively superior than a lot of Paramotors is because of the handling and the feeling of it while flying it. Having spent so many hours on this Paramotor by now, I've really grown to love the adjustable swing arm system. But when I first heard of this, I thought it was gimmicky. I really did. I thought it was just kind of a hoax. After all, like, I hadn't really noticed any issues with my fixed swing arms on my previous paramotors, and people likely hadn't considered an issue with like rack and pinion steering prior to developing power steering. And I think Gravity's just found an area of opportunity to improve upon in this sense. They call this adjustable feature the Adaptive Comfort System, or ACS. There's supposedly like multiple benefits about the Adaptive Comfort System, being that it's great for larger pilots, or that it allows you to use to compensate for the torque created by the engine or the propeller. However, for me, the absolute awesome benefit of having this Adaptive Comfort System in the swing arms is that it allows me to just maximize my weight shift, or make it kind of go away, but it's up to you and how you want to fly that day. When I'm doing cross-country flights, I keep the arms in their widest position, which allows me to fly with my hands off, with more control than paramotors with narrower swing arm stances. In the widest stance, the frame rolls left and right more with less effort. Its feeling is closer to like paragliding than it is to paramotors. I can feel the glider through the Defiant's frame in a way that allows me to understand the air that I'm flying in more clearly. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I have the ability to bring the swing arms all the way in, like stiffening the roll and reducing the feedback. This is the configuration that I use when I'm racing down low, flying around Cactus. I don't want my weight shift to have quite as much of an influence on what the glider is doing, because I'm having to give 100% of my focus to my hands, which are operating the brakes, as well as the throttle, which is one of my hands, and the speed bar. So if I can reduce the demand of my attention by what my body position is influencing the glider to do, then I'm able to fly down low safer, even though it's not the safest form of flying. I'm able to be safer in theory, because my attention is freed up to do the other controls. So I do like that. It works really well for me. The other design that's unique to Gravity paramotors is their dynamic flight system, which is patented. It's also DFS for short. And this allows the swing arms to have a horizontal element of movement. The DFS uses disc spacers, referred to as pucks, that reportedly increase the effective weight shift. To be completely honest, I don't know if it is this dynamic flight system that allows the Gravity Defiant to feel as good as it does, or if it's the Adaptive Comfort System. But my thought would be that it is both of these systems working together to create the feeling that it does while flying this paramotor. Whether I'm flying my beginner Dudek Universal, or whether I'm flying the extremely advanced Dudek Warp, I'm able to get the most out of it, more than I've ever been able to get out of my gliders, because of the Adaptive Comfort System and this dynamic flight system. So to my surprise, I judged the book by its cover, essentially. Like, I didn't actually give it an opportunity, and then when I did read the book, I ended up loving it. Another great thing about the Gravity Defiant is its durability. The daily strain of a paramotor is the test that it needs to be put through to see how durable it truly is. For example, I pick my paramotor up and I just kind of like plop it in the truck harder than would be recommended. But still, the hoop section, which is one of the most vulnerable sections on a paramotor, is really, really strong. And that's super important, because a lot of these really expensive paramotor frames honestly will break. Like, if it's made of carbon fiber, or if it is titanium does bend, and it's really hard to bend it back. But this hoop section that I got with my Gravity Defiant is strong. I'd much rather have a little bit of extra weight rather than compromising its structural integrity. Something that really concerned me was, in my recent videos, there were some individuals in the comment section, and I'll put them up on the screen, where they had expressed their concerns about the design of the swing arms going into a high-strength plastic. The concern being that while flying, they may potentially dislodge and it would end poorly. I've been pushing this paramotor harder than I've pushed any paramotor. After every flight, I check them. There is absolutely no change. And just for more reassurance, these arms have been tested up to 4 tons. 4 tons. They're really strong. There's several other design features that are certainly worth mentioning, but don't require much elaboration. The fuel tank is massive. It's just so big. It's 5 gallons. It is the biggest fuel tank I've had. My previous Paramotor, I was able to buy an extra large fuel tank at an upcharge, and still it was not as big a fuel capacity as my Gravity Defiant, which is able to carry the maximum legal amount of fuel. Another thing is just how perfectly located the fuel cap is. I wrote down some things. The netting on this Paramotor, I find that it's just really strong, and nets, regardless of which Paramotor you purchase, it's always expensive to purchase an entirely new net. So there's 2 things to consider here. First and foremost, you have a really strong net that's unlikely to break. And secondly, being that the ugly side of the Paramotor is you build this entire thing, if your net breaks, you're going to be already familiar with how to make any sort of repairs. No matter which Paramotor you get, you'll always have to do something. Everybody says, if you're a Paramotor pilot, you're also a mechanic or something like that. Inevitably, things will break. But because of building this Paramotor from the ground up, you're going to have the upper hand in being able to kick ass and take names when it comes to getting back in the sky. So, yeah, I'm excited. I really hope that you guys liked this video. If you did, I ask that you click that thumbs up button. If you didn't like it, by all means, click the thumbs down button. If you want more videos on paramotoring and you enjoyed this one, I ask that you subscribe to the channel. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye.
Bounce with it, just bounce with it. Everybody wanna come, I'm announcing it. I'm always gon' get it, I'm always gon' get it. Even if you sit back denouncing it. But I'm a good kid, I rock gold, I'm never gon' sleep with ya. I loved you, I've been wrong, but let me see the whole damn picture. But damn, I got it, super when he popped it. Fake ass ride when he copped it. Rode the snowmobile, so I know